domestic policies that the American people want us to move forward on.
So the White House disagrees with that characterization?
Look, I think I just laid out what we believe we have been able to accomplish here in the more than 3 years in this administration. I think they have their opinions and they're allowed to their opinions, and we respect what their opinions on this.
Does the U.S. believe that a Rafa operation is imminent?
That's something for Israel to speak to. What I can say is we've made our concerns very clear, publicly and privately. We've had two virtual conversations that have been led by the National Security Advisor. As you know, Jake Sullivan, he was here last week speaking to this. We are going to continue to be very, very clear on where we stand on this and our concerns for innocent civilian lives, more than 1 million innocent civilian.
Team is preparing for that?
So let me just say a couple things here, and you've heard us say many times before, and we'll continue to how fighting anti-Semitism is at the core of who this president is. He was moved to run by the grotesque display of anti-Semitism in Charlottesville, as you all know and covered. Some of you covered back in 2017, and like I mentioned on Monday, he will deliver the keynote address at the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum annual Days of Remembrance ceremony. During the Days of Remembrance, we remember and mourn the 6 million Jews who were systematically murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators during World War II. The President will discuss our moral duty to combat the rising scourge of anti-Semitism and the Biden-Harris administration's work to implementing the first ever national strategy counter anti-Semitism to make real the promise of never, ever, ever again. This is, when it comes to speeches, important big moments like this, the President obviously takes this very seriously. He knows that this is going to be an important moment for the country to hear from him, and I don't have anything beyond what I just shared.
The focus of this speech will obviously be, as you said, the Holocaust survivors, anti-Semitism. Given just everything that's going on, does the President believe that it would be appropriate to also address in this speech the pro-Palestinian protesters and their sentiment, or does he believe that that should be for a different
I'm going to
setting?
be super mindful of not going to, as I've said many times, I'm not going to get ahead of the President. The speech is, in process. And so I'm going to let the President think through what exactly that he wants to share with the American people. Obviously, as I just stated at the beginning of my answer to you, fighting anti-Semitism is at the core of this president, and we have seen a rise in anti-Semitism. And we want to make sure that we make it very clear that it is hate speech, it is abhorrent, and so certainly you'll hear from the President very, very clearly on Tuesday, and certainly he'll share more. Go ahead.
Thanks, Karine. The White House brought on a new border person, Blas Nunez Neto. What is it? What is that? Does that give any indications of urgency, speed of the executive order that the President has been considering?
So look, we look forward to the DHS Assistant Secretary joining the White House and continuing his work in implementing the administration's vision across the border security and immigration spaces. Don't have anything new to read out on any new announcements, but look, this is an administration that is committed to fixing the broken immigration system. On his first day of this administration, the first piece of legislation that he put forward was a comprehensive piece of legislation to deal with the broken system, to deal with what we're seeing with at the border, the challenges. And then we moved forward when that legislation was not moving forward in Congress. We had a 2-month negotiation process with senators to come up with a bipartisan proposal. And so that was rejected, as you all know, by Republicans because of the former president stating that this would hurt him and help Joe Biden. And that is unfortunate. We know that this is an issue when we talk about the immigration system that majority of Americans care about. And so,
steps that he could take?
Look, we believe that the bipartisan border security agreement that came out of the Senate that was rejected by Republicans because of the former president is the best way to move forward in a comprehensive way. That's what we want to see. And I've stated this many times before, as it relates to any other actions, we're always going to look at other opportunities, other actions. We always will. Don't have anything to speak to announce at this moment. We actually want to see that bipartisan immigration agreement move forward. That's what we want to see. That is going to be the most comprehensive way to deal with a broken immigration system. You've heard me say this. If it is put into law, signed into law by this president, it would be the toughest and the fairest piece of legislative or law that we have seen in some time. This system has been broken. The immigration system has been broken for decades, and it's time that we act, and Republicans have an opportunity to do that. They have an opportunity to do that. Go ahead, April.
Karine, there's some very loud voices that are out there asking for President Joe Biden to issue a pardon to Marilyn Mosby, the former Baltimore City State's attorney who is waiting for sentencing, could face 40 years for taking her own money out of a retirement account to buy a house. And this group, to include Bakari Sellers and Angela Rye, have pulled together a lot of civil rights leaders. What is the president's thought about all of this, especially as she was one of those who really was groundbreaking in efforts of policing and accountability? And Bakari Sellers says that it looks like political persecution as well as retribution for what she did many years ago in the Freddie Gray case that still has yet to have accountability for his death.
So I want to be really mindful here because that is obviously a Department of Justice process, and I don't want to be certainly speaking to any individual pardon request. That is not something that I can do. The DOJ has their process. Department of Justice, as I just mentioned, employs a process that is thorough, that is deliberative, a process to review, when it comes to a process to review executive clemency petitions. And then individuals obviously submit their applications there. There's an application process. Want to be super mindful, don't want to speak to an individual case here, and so I'm going to be really mindful. This is a Department of Justice kind of jurisdiction, and so just going to leave it there.
But the president could indeed say, yes, I would like to see this happen, and add his voice to this petition?
Well, this is a Department of Justice. They go through a process. It's very thorough. That is,
It tips the scale sometimes.
I mean, you just laid that out. So I want to be really careful because there is a process that the Department of Justice has to go through. It is thorough and it is deliberative, and so we have to let that process go through. And I don't want to. I don't want to speak on that process, and just want to be really, really mindful here.
Is the president aware of what's happening in this case? Because she was one of the forefront persons
I know.
calling for accountability. It didn't happen in Baltimore, but there was a ripple effect with Ahmaud Arbery and Derek Chauvin and those with George Floyd. Is he familiar with this?
I certainly know who you're speaking of. I have not had an opportunity to speak to the president about this, so I can't. I can't say if I can't say the president's thoughts on this because I have not spoken to him about it. But obviously, it is very well known of what she has done. But I don't want to. I just want to be super mindful. This is a Department of Justice process. As you know, we're really, really careful from this podium. We respect that process here.
Thank you.
Russia's state-controlled energy company posted its first net loss since 1999 yesterday. Does the White House see that as efforts to isolate Russia working?
Say that one more time.
Yeah. Russia's state-controlled energy company posted its first net loss yesterday since 1999.
So I want to be mindful. I want to talk to our team about this. I don't have any information for you to dive into at this time. Let me take that and bring it back to the team.
Can I ask another energy question then too? Does the White House think the FTC made the right decision in approving Exxon's acquisition of Pioneer, even though the company has been accused of colluding with OPEC?
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that either at this time.
Thanks, Karine. The International Criminal Court prosecutor issued a statement today warning against, quotes, threats and attempts to intimidate the court over his work. That comes after reports that both Israel and some members of Congress had warned of retaliation against the ICC if it charges Israeli officials. Just wanted to get your reaction to that, and and as to whether the White House would back retaliation against the ICC for charges against Israeli officials.
So we obviously oppose any threats or intimidation to public officials that including ICC officials. So obviously, we're going to be always mindful and be very clear about opposing any type of threats or attempts to intimidate. That is something that you'll hear from us pretty consistently. But we've been clear. I was asked about this particular investigation by ICC a couple days ago. We do not support it. We do not support this investigative probe. We do not believe it's within their jurisdiction. We've been very clear about that, and that obviously still remains. I'm going to be really, you're asking me about what could be next, and if we would weigh in if they were to move forward. I'm not going to get into hypotheticals from here, but we've been very clear. We oppose this investigation, and we do not believe it's within their jurisdiction.
Yes, thanks, Karine. The President was very clear in condemning the violence at the protest, but does he believe that any of the issues that have been raised by the protesters across campuses is legitimate?
What's the specific, can you tell me the specific issues that you're hearing?
Like, for instance, solidarity with the victims, the ceasefire, the request for more aid, pre-Palestine chants, that he believed that any of the things that these protesters are manifesting for is legitimate.
Well, can I just speak to the things that I understand you to lay out? As it relates to ceasefire, the president is pushing for a hostage deal, which would lead to a ceasefire. And if you have a ceasefire, this hostage deal, it would create an environment to get more humanitarian aid into Gaza. And you saw Secretary Blinken in the region just the other day. He did a press conference in Israel, and he talked about the increased effort that we have undertaken to get more humanitarian, to get more trucks into Gaza. And so we have seen an uptick, and so we want to continue to see that. But we have to see this hostage deal. So get to a ceasefire, get more humanitarian aid. We understand the dire situation that the Palestinian Americans the Palestinian citizens, are dealing with right now. And so we want to make sure that we get humanitarian aid in.
What about the requests from these protesters from universities to divest in
We do
Israel
not. That is,
sending
and
weapons
I was
to
asked this
Israel?
question, and we do not support that. Go ahead, Adam.
Thanks. On avian flu, we've talked with several hospital officials who have told us that the health system is essentially unprepared for another major health crisis if bird flu were to start spreading widely among people. In particular, hospitals don't have the manpower. There's still concerns about the ability to get supplies quickly, and communication and data sharing, they say, hasn't improved markedly since even before COVID. So I'm curious what the White House's response is to those concerns and whether there are any preparations ongoing to ensure we can respond to that kind of crisis.
So I want to, we are monitoring this very closely and taking this very seriously. It is a top priority for this administration to make sure that communities are healthy, safe, and certainly informed. So we're monitoring this closely. The president has directed his administration to do the following: protect public health, protect our nation's food supply, and monitor all trends to prevent the spread of avian flu. CDC they have reported that the risk for general public is low, and federal agencies are coordinating with local authorities. And so we're monitoring closely. We want to make sure that communities feel safe, they feel protected, and have the information that they need. And you heard from the CDC directly on this.
Is there a belief that the hospital, the health system as it stands, is prepared enough to withstand another major health crisis?
So that's not something for me to speak to from here. What we're doing is taking this very seriously. We're monitoring the situation. CDC has spoken to this and said the risk to the general public is low. I think that's important to note. And the president is on top of this, making sure that his agencies are doing everything that they need to do to make sure that communities are protected, that our communities are informed, and certainly are healthy. Okay, Karen.
Thanks, Karine. On abortion, does the administration have any reaction to this report that a Texas man has filed a petition to state district court in Texas to try and investigate possible illegal activity that was committed, he's saying, by his ex-partner because she went to Colorado to get an abortion?
So wait, what? Say that
A
one more time.
man is looking to have an investigation into possible illegal activity. His ex-partner traveled out of state from Texas to Colorado to seek an abortion.
Look, that sounds like there's a legal case. Going to be careful not to respond from here. What I will say more broadly, and what we have continued to say, that the attacks on reproductive health care that we have seen, and makes it incredibly difficult for women to make decisions on their own body, for their own health, is devastating. It is devastating what we're seeing. And sadly, because of what happened, the overturning of Roe, because of the Dobbs decision that happened almost 2 years ago, we have seen just chaos across the board. And we see tens of millions of women who are now at risk of not being able to make that decision. I can't speak to individual cases. What I can speak to is the chaos that we have seen. What I can speak to is what the president and this administration, the Biden-Harris administration, are committed to protecting a woman's right to choose, a woman's right to make a decision on her own body, on her own health care. And it's not just abortion, as you know. It's IVF that's under attack, contraception that's under attack. And so we're going to be very loud, continue to be loud and clear about that, and ask Congress to make sure that Roe becomes the law of the land, and they need to take action. Don't want to get into legal cases out there. I cannot do that from here. But as it relates to reproductive health care, we've been very clear, and we continue to do that from here.
Great.
Oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Karine. So the president says that he wants to let the tax cuts, the Trump tax cuts, expire. If that law expires, it does raise taxes on almost every American. So does he still support that expiring without anything else in place?
So look, as you said, the president is going to is going to let the Trump tax cut expire, and he was very clear. But he will not raise taxes on anyone making less than $400,000 a year. That is part of the budget that you saw come out, and it's going to expire for the wealthy. So been very clear about that. Look, this is a president that's going to make sure that we protect and not raise taxes for people making $400,000 and less a year. And Republicans want to do the opposite. They want to give tax breaks to corporations and billionaires. They said that. They want to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Who does that hurt? That hurts everyday Americans. And so the president has been really clear about that. He wants to expand Affordable Care Act, as you see him doing that for Americans, making sure that they have good health care. And so that's what the president is going to focus on.
The president can't pick and choose which part of the law sunsets. The entire law will sunset. And the Tax Foundation says that someone who's married, 2 kids, making $85,000 would pay $1,700 more in taxes. That's somebody under $400,000 who would.
The president has been very clear. He's going to protect working and middle-class Americans making less than $400,000 a year. He's been very clear on that about that. Republicans want to do the opposite. They literally want to do the opposite. They want to give a tax break to billionaires and corporations. That's what they said. They want to cut Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. That's what they want to do. And so the president's going to do everything that he can as he's building this economy from the middle out and the bottom up to protect everyday Americans. That's what he wants to do. Make sure that the middle class is strong. That's what he's going to do. Republicans in Congress are saying the opposite. Literally, they're saying the opposite. So that's been the president's plan from day one, and he's going to continue that plan. Go ahead.
Thank you. A few things.
A few things. No, just one.
Don't make me pick. Islamophobia on campuses.
Yeah.
Lately, we've been seeing a lot of vile anti-Semitic
Yeah.
rhetoric on campuses. Does he think Islamophobia is just as big of a problem on campus as anti-Semitism?
The president's always going to call out all forms of hate, always. And he had an opportunity to speak to the country. And we have seen what's been going on these campuses. Americans have the right to peacefully protest within the law, as we have said. It's part of who we are as a country, as when we talk about our freedoms, our democracy, to disagree and agree with each other, even about this war. It is our right to do so. It is right for folks to do so. You got to do it peacefully. You got to do it within the law. And we have seen the anti-Semitism, and we have called that out over and over and over again. And we've seen a spike in anti-Semitism. The president has been very forceful about that. He talked about his plan to counter anti-Semitism. He had an opportunity as he's talking to the country, the world really, on what has been happening across the country on college campuses, to call out anti-Semitism, to say that Americans have the right to peacefully protest, and we also have to call out all forms of hate. I believe, and I hope you would agree, Peter, that's an important thing for this president to do, if he has the opportunity to do that. When the president speaks, people listen.
Something else that had somehow slipped my mind
How is
over
that?
the last couple weeks.
Oh, goodness.
You are an alumna of Columbia University.
Wow, that's a shocker.
Well, you, in all the talking about it, you
Yeah.
haven't brought it up. You told Columbia students a few years back,
Yeah.
don't lose the idealism that you have. So what do you tell
Oh,
them
you
now?
did. You did some research. Oh
All
my
I do
gosh.
is research and just hope that you call on me.
You did. You
But
did
no,
some.
what do you tell
I mean,
the students
look.
who have followed in
I
your
mean,
footsteps?
look. Going to be. Oh, and that's actually going to be a great segue to the student journalist that we have in the room, Danny. After I answer this question.
I do have one more after that. Sorry, Danny.
It's okay. So, look, I'm not speaking on behalf of me. I'm not. I speak on behalf of this president. That's my job. And I believe in this president. I believe in the work that we do. It is an honor and a privilege to stand at this lectern every day to speak to you and all your colleagues and to take your questions. It is not about me. And really, your question and what you're asking me and what I have said to students is pretty much what the president has said. All Americans have the right to peacefully protest within the law. They have to, we have the right. That's what makes this country so great, right? That's what makes, when we're talking about our freedoms, our democracy, that's what's so important. To have the opportunity to agree and disagree and do it in a peaceful way, that's important. And the president also called out, if you are breaking an entry and you are taking over buildings, that is not peacefully protesting. And the president was very clear about calling that out as well, and also anti-Semitism, and calling it what it is hate speech.
My last one. At UNC Chapel Hill this week, a group of fraternity brothers saved an American flag from an angry mob of protesters. There is now a GoFundMe where people can donate to throw them a rager. It has raised more than $500,000. Would President Biden donate?
You never disappoint, my friend.
He donates to a lot of
You never
different
disappoint.
causes we saw in his tax returns.
I'll say this because there is actually a real point in your question that I will address, which is, and I, just to reiterate what we've said over and over again, Americans have, and I just said this moments ago, so I'll just reiterate this, all Americans have the right to peacefully protest. It is not right to forcefully take down the American flag to replace it with another flag. It is not right. And so I just wanted to make that clear as well. All right, Peter?
So a donation, what about like a call to thank them for saving the flag?
Look, protecting the American flag is admirable. I'll leave it there, Peter. Danny, it's your opportunity to shine. Everybody welcome Danny.
Welcome, Danny.
Danny goes to Uniondale High School, and she is a journalist at Uniondale High School. She wants to be where you all are at some point in her career. Okay, but you have a question?
Well, my question is, how can I, as an editor of my school paper, be able to encourage engagement globally?
Encourage engagement. So I think as an editor, it is certainly important to always make sure that, you listen to the community, but also get that information, work on getting the facts so that your community gets the facts, obviously. And I believe young people want to know what's going on in their community. I believe that young people are incredibly curious right now. And laying that out for them and saying, hey, this is what is going on, this is how you can learn more, or this is what you should know, is so important. And you should lead, not by fear, but by getting to the bottom of a story, getting to the bottom of how you're going to put those facts out. And I think it's important as you go through your career, your journalistic career. You have some really brilliant journalists here who certainly could give you advice. I'm sure they'd love to talk to you after this briefing. I'm sure they have time to do that, as they're all looking at me and smiling. And they could actually give you, I think, some really sound advice, some helpful advice on how to move through your career. But young people are curious. They're very curious right now. They want to know more. And this is a great opportunity for you as an editor at your high school to do just that and to have those important conversations, whether they agree or disagree, and lay out the facts for them. And so they can make decisions for themselves. Thank you for the question. All right, I'll take one more, guys. I'll take one more. Oh my gosh, go ahead, go ahead.
Thanks, Karine. Just to follow up on the press freedom executive actions that you mentioned, is there anything we can expect aimed at Russia in response to Evan?
So, as you know, we're going to be announcing some executive action shortly. Certainly don't want to get ahead of that. So once in the next couple of weeks, we'll have more. We'll have more to share. Don't have anything at this time, but we're working through that. And we think it's really important. We think it's really important to continue to take action. A free and independent media is critical. As I just took a question from a high school future journalist, who's a journalist now, obviously, at her high school. And it is vital to our global security. We appreciate the work that journalists do every day, and it is, many journalists put their lives at risk, put their lives at stake. And so, and you hear me say this before, journalists are not the enemy, and they should be protected, and freedom of the press. What we do here every day, it is an exercise of the freedom of the press. And so we want to make sure that that continues, not just here, but obviously globally. All right, thanks everybody. Have a great weekend.